Hello again, and welcome to the Ken Morico podcast. I'm here with Captain Joel Rock, and Joel flies for a major airliner, and he flies out of JFK. And I thought since we have so many business listeners for the Ken Morico podcast, and a lot of people fly, and maybe some people are flying right now during the whole COVID situation, I was thinking Captain Rock could give us some insights on flying and what's going on right now, how to prepare for flying, and just sort of some of the financial situation also going on with the airlines and some of the economics of flying a large aircraft. So, welcome to the podcast, Joel.
No, thank you, Ken, for having me on board. Yeah, that's true. I do fly for a U.S. major airline out of JFK Airport, and obviously we do live in strange times right now. This
Right.
has been fiscally affecting my industry and the people who work in my industry.
Mm-hmm.
But happy to report that so far we're holding on. In fact, my airline is one of the very few that has extended pilots' jobs and flight crew jobs to at least May of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, most of the industry right now is laying off in huge numbers
Right.
due to the lack of demand because of the fear of the spread of coronavirus with within our country right now.
Mm-hmm.
But sincerely, I can say that flying really isn't that unsafe as far as the spread of the disease. I believe there probably is more of a chance to get it within large crowds or within party situations or even the rioting that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you come to the airport, I can tell you that at least within our own airline, that we thoroughly clean the aircraft every time
Mm-hmm.
that people come in and come out. You have to wear masks the entire time. There isn't even a lot of people in the terminal anymore, so you're not really coming within close contact. A lot of our employees are already wearing gloves, so you're not
Right.
getting hand-to-hand contact. In fact, now we have systems where you board the aircraft. You don't even have to physically hand a boarding pass to anybody anymore. It's a machine.
Mm-hmm.
You step on the machine,
Yep.
you scan your boarding pass, the gates open if it's good, and that's it. You never come in contact with another human being.
Wow. So generally, I mean, the airports you're saying are fairly empty right now because I flew in March, actually, kind of when this was all starting to go down,
Yeah,
and the
there,
airports are
there
very
is a
empty.
rise in activity though.
Yeah.
I was recently, a couple days ago, in the airport, and I guess to say for the first time, I saw it was up to at least 30 to 40% more capacity than it has been.
Mm-hmm.
So people are coming around, they are traveling, but I solely believe that nothing will be resolved until there is a proven vaccine and it's been tested and people have been taking a while and confidence gets restored within
Right.
the public.
Yeah. And I've noticed a lot of people. Some people are very scared. I mean, I think that a lot of them are just scared to leave their house. And
Yes,
it's pretty shocking.
the media really is, I believe, is a very strong, persuader of that, and the fact of the fear that they promote. In fact, I think they're gaining ratings and support
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
over spreading fear.
Right.
They're making it seem like if you walk into an airport that you're automatically gonna get coronavirus because you just walk to the doors.
Right. Now, how
And if
how
you
how is the air filtered inside? Like if once you're up in the air, right? Because the aircraft itself in the cabin is kind of small, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
no, the aircraft has an airborne environmental system. Yes, it is recycled air, but it goes through a filter.
mm-hmm.
So basically, the air that's pumped into the cabin is actually produced by a byproduct of the air that comes off the engine. So the jet engine essentially works where it pulls air in and blows it out the other side. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
have all that excess buildup of air. We call it bleed air. It comes off the engine and through the environmental systems, goes through a series of check valves and filters
Mm-hmm.
and gets this redistributed through the cabin. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the 170-degree temperature air that's coming off the engine. It's
Right.
been cooled down to a heat air exchanger there. Basically, it comes
Right.
into the cabin.
So
It's not like
does that kill some of the germs?
some of the germs, yeah, are killed, and some are just recycled through.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like you're opening up the vent and then you're getting doused with some kind of germ activity.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, if you're going to contract any kind of viral infection, it's because somebody has hacked, coughed, sneezed on a surface,
Right.
or coughed within the vicinity and then it gets contact with airborne. So
Right.
that hence is why people are required to wear masks. That's also hence why people are required to keep their distance.
Hmm.
And the aircraft seating for now has been staggered. So people aren't just packed in like a cattle car sitting on
Right.
top of each other.
Right. Now I heard like some of the middle seats are people just
Yeah,
aren't sitting in the middle seats, but are some airlines putting people in the middle seats? Is it just kind of like on a case by
some
case?
are, but the airline I work for has put a restriction. They cannot sell the middle seat,
Hmm.
unless you're in the same family or
Right.
related to each other.
I see. Okay.
But the center seat is out now, and if I understand that will stand until about the 9th of September. After the 9th of September, the middle seat restriction will lift. So that will further, promote ticket sales. But still, like our airline has been, and from what I've seen, has been proactive in as far as keeping the airplanes clean and by looking to the future of a post-pandemic world kind of thing.
Right. Now, before this pandemic started, there was a shortage of pilots,
Yes.
correct? Because there's so much demand for people that just wanted to travel the world, and I think that's kind of been a popular thing now, as
No, yeah,
as
it
sort
goes
of
hand in hand with the economy, basically. Good economy.
right. And not only that, I mean, a lot of people are working because remote work is possible. They're saying like, "Hey, I'll just go live in another country because I can, and it's much cheaper."
Mm.
Right. And and a lot of the younger kids, they do want to travel, and it's much easier, because you have access to, more knowledge about places on the internet. You can do a lot more research. A lot more countries are safer now than they used to be. And people can just work remotely. So I think, given the choice, I think a lot of people, wanted to travel a lot because it was easier. Um, so what do you think about that? So there was a shortage, and now there's a surplus, right? You were saying something that we talked before, that there's what,
Yeah, there's about
14,000, or is that
12,500 pilots across all U.S. major airlines are going to be furloughed come
wow,
this fall.
right? And these are highly
So
skilled people. I mean, you can't just have them
no, you
bagging
can't get a pilot for
groceries.
10
Can't
bucks.
have them bagging groceries because
No.
they're too skilled, because you're going to need them once demand picks up, because it's not like you can just kind of pick up again. You really want these people to stay on.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting point of contention because of the fact that the airlines ultimately work on a very thin margin for gaining profit. As I
Right.
discussed earlier, if the airplane is half full,
Right.
they're not going to compensate for the direct operating cost of the aircrafts. So the more seats they sell, more
Right.
seat revenue sell, the more they offset the cost, and the more at the end of the day they actually make a profit. There's an old joke in my
Mhm.
industry: if you want to make $1 million, you start with two.
Right.
So, but I just read an article today actually that the Airbus has tested an aircraft that can taxi itself, take off, fly around, and land and taxi off the runway all by itself without even a pilot's input.
Wow.
And this is not something that's going to be, you know, sold to the general public tomorrow because
Right.
obviously people, I don't want to be up flying it in an airplane that's flying
Right.
itself.
Right. But 20 years
But
from now,
yeah, if you're on the other side of the coin, somebody who wants to actually make profit, how do you make profit? You cut out the pilot.
yep.
So you don't have to worry about hiring a surplus of pilots. You don't
Right.
have to worry about paying a whole bunch of people in payroll. You don't have to worry
Right.
about, they're going to duty out there. This is a machine you're running, not a human being that has a duty limitation
Right.
and a rest limitation.
Yeah. Now the capital
But
costs for airlines is just astronomical. Their cash burn is. I mean,
yeah,
is it ever possible for for an airliner to be profitable? Because there's always something like a pandemic, or something comes up where it can put them out of business so fast.
it all depends on how your business structure is and how everything from who is your support staff to where your spending goes. I mean, it's a it's a very fine line. I mean, to make profit in the airlines, you really got to be running a very low cost kind of system
Right.
and still be efficient at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. Because with an airline, you have to account for weather, you have to account for delays, you have to account
Right.
for duty times, you have to account for cancellations, and you have to account for every single day of dealing with the air traffic control system, which is always overflowed, and people all at the end of the day was come up to me and it's like, why would we late? And I was like, well,
Right.
sometimes there's factors that are not within my control. It's like getting into rush hour traffic on the
Right.
highway.
Right.
I can't control that.
Yeah, because if there's traffic, you just have to wait up in the air, right?
Oh yeah, sometimes you have to do holding patterns in the air, but
Right.
more importantly, sometimes you have to like wait in the ground, and that's just a miserable experience. But for the passenger, and believe me,
Right.
for us flight crew up there, it's not
Right.
a more pleasurable experience either.
So how full does the airplane have to be, do you think, for it to make money or
Seventy
to be
percent,
profitable? Yeah.
at least 70%.
70%.
Well, to put this in perspective, prior to being a U.S. major airline pilot, I was actually a private corporate pilot.
Yep.
So I flew a private jet for an owner, and I flew charters, etc.
Right.
That jet cost bare bones $3,500 an hour to operate,
Oh.
and then we used to charge $5,000 an hour for a charter. So, and then by the time you paid the brokers and everybody else, at the end of the day, the actual profit maybe $1,000 per hour.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's how tight it is. And now the larger the aircraft, the more direct operating costs are.
Right.
That's why the airlines put more seats in the aircraft, because the
Right.
fact that they have to turn profit.
Right.
Which was interesting at the airline I work with. While some of the other carriers were stacking people on top of each other,
Mm-hmm.
we had basically, so the aircraft I flew had 100 seats on it. Other airlines, you'd have 120 or so seats. And the reason we did 100 seats is because we want to put people in there, but we also want to actually give people extra room.
Right.
See, our airline's philosophy was about treating the customer right and making them feel welcome and everything else like that, rather than the approach of like a subway system where I don't care, pay the fare and let me just stuff you in there.
Yeah. Now, corporate airline, like private airlines, and like Learjets and things like that. I mean, that seems like that's kind of the way to go right now because you can.
It makes it, if pandemic, no pandemic, crisis, no crisis, the people with means, the people that have to get business done, and I mean
Right.
by business, multi-million-dollar deals,
Right.
they're going to get it done, and they're going to find an aircraft to fly. So, yes, for my friends who still work in the corporate industry,
Mm-hmm.
they've made a faster recovery, obviously, than the airline. 'Cause the airline is the general public,
Right.
and as far as business travel goes in the general public, right now, companies, they can't force their employees to get on an airplane to travel to places like that
Right.
because they're under the scrutiny of localized governments for as far as the social distancing and the
Right.
stay-at-home orders and stuff like that. So
Right.
that
But
would be a big no-no. Now, if you're a multimillionaire who makes the rules and regulations, that's a whole different story.
right. Well, I guess kind of the way I'm thinking of it is if someone has money for maybe they don't normally fly, private corporate jet, but they have the money. Maybe normally they fly like first class, but now they're thinking, hey, there's pandemic going on. I can get sick. I'll just pay the money for a corporate, jet, a private jet, just because it
Yeah,
makes
when
me feel more
you know
comfortable. Yeah.
that you're further away from people, and
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
jet's going to be thoroughly clean and you're paying top dollar.
Exactly. You know more about the controls in place, and it's
Yeah,
a
you
lower
would you would
risk.
you would think that, but just from inside information from undisclosed sources,
Mm-hmm.
they actually got hit as hard as we did in the
Really?
airlines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their business dried up. It just started to make a recovery, as far as I know, about a month and a half ago.
Right.
We're still lagging behind that in the airline industry,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, because we're more highly exposed. Or about
Right.
as funny, the airlines and the cruise ships are about the front line for any economic or sickness or any kind of like problem. We were the
Right.
first to get hit.
Yeah. And I remember with 9/11, when that happened, you were a young pilot then, and
Yeah, I was young.
and you got
Yeah,
then you got furloughed, right? Or
instantaneously got furloughed,
yeah.
and was actually there that day and witnessed it all in person. So
Yeah.
it
Wow.
was a hell of a start to a career. And here I go back to the airlines again. The same
Right.
thing happens all over
It's
again.
yeah. It's been
But this is
crazy times.
different. This is worse. This is
It's,
worse than it was with 9/11. At least 9/11, it wasn't where you can go into an airplane and potentially get a virus. This is a one-time hijacking event
right.
that was put down and controlled, and the other country was, where our allies had went in and went right after the perpetrators.
Right.
This isn't a virus which is hard to fight. and highly contagious. So this is going to take a
Wow.
lot longer, and it's going to have a lot longer lasting effect on our economy than 9/11 ever had.
Right. And the thing that's kind of interesting is you have all these online meeting tools like Zoom and Skype, and all these things were in place. I used them, for many years before, and I always thought, like, well, why are they still flying for business meetings when they can do this online with
Yeah,
such good quality, And I
that
think
that's
they just didn't feel, the CEOs and a lot of upper management, they just didn't feel comfortable with it. But now that they were forced to do it, I think this may be a permanent change. What do you think, as far as affecting
yeah.
the
I think
frequency
this.
of travel?
I think that I was thinking about that myself. You know, especially when my wife works, in the
Mm-hmm.
defense industry
Mm-hmm.
for a defense contractor, and the same thing that, and I know a lot of my colleagues and stuff like that are on these meetings, and I know that it must cost companies far less to keep IT people in a Zoom meeting going
Right.
than to actually have the lights on in an office building. And if you can get your work done remotely
Yep.
without having to be in office and spend all that face-to-face time, I mean, that's got to be 20-30% cost reduction
Yep.
in a company's operating expenses, which again is another hit and blow for my industry.
Mm-hmm.
But ironically, my particular airline doesn't thrive on business travelers as much as some of the other airlines.
Oh.
We're actually 70% personal travel.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you say to people that want to fly for like personal reasons or business reasons? Like what do you say to people, like, go ahead and do it, or only go if you feel it's necessary? Um,
Um,
what's your take?
it's
And,
it's
and this is
because
like
I mean,
in your personal opinion. This is your personal
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I mean, I'd like to say go and do it because it brings me back to work faster. But
Mhm.
um, obviously, take all the precautions. Coronavirus is a serious thing,
Mhm.
and it's not hocus pocus. It's not fake. It's real.
Right.
And I actually was kind of sick with this at the end of January. So
Mhm. Oh, you
I
think
mean,
you
I
think you
had
may have had it at that point?
yeah, I took a test, and it actually it came back negative for
Mhm.
the coronavirus,
Mhm.
and at me currently having it. But I also read an article said that the antibodies disappeared within 2 months.
Hmm.
But I had all the symptoms consistent with it,
Right.
and I know one or two people that actually have had it,
Okay.
and it is not hocus pocus. It is a serious thing,
Right.
and but at the end of the day, it's like you got to be a good citizen.
Right.
If you want to travel, just take the necessary precautions. Just be aware.
Right. So
The
if I'm
the reason
if I'm going to the airport, what do I need? Is it just the mask? Is that all I need?
all it's required is you to wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to wear gloves, by all means wear gloves. It's not going to do any harm.
Mm-hmm.
Wash your, when I go to work right now, I require my company to wear a mask. When it's not possible, obviously, no, at all times. I'm in the terminal, all times I'm in the airplane. I walk
Mm-hmm.
in, I'm supposed to wear a mask. First thing I do when I get to the airport is I actually go to the men's room and I wash my hands before I go to
Mm-hmm.
work.
Okay. Now, do
I
passengers
go,
have to wear the mask the whole flight?
yes, you're required to wear the whole mask. The in-flight crew is required to wear it, and the passengers are required to wear a mask the entire flight. Now, if you're within 6 feet of somebody, you may have to pull down once in a while just to breathe through your nose, but you're supposed to be wearing the mask.
I see.
Um, and then up front, and even I said we clean the rear of the airplane, but we also clean the front of the airplane too. We wipe all the surfaces down every time, and we wipe them when we leave. That's the way
Okay.
it's always sanitized.
Okay.
And when I said that the coronavirus was a serious thing, is because I just actually when I was talking about this, I just remembered I had a colleague of mine
Mm-hmm.
pass away in April that was in my same training class,
Uh-huh.
and he had coronavirus, and he
Wow.
died from it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a real thing for sure.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean the best thing you can do is just stay healthy, keep your immune system healthy, because there's
yeah.
no vaccine right
Definitely the
now.
immune system. No, they're in trials right now, and I said that confidence in the public will not be restored until there's an actual vaccine in place. But the best thing you can do for yourself is taking care of your own personal health.
Yep.
The natural order of things, your own immune system is a wondrous thing.
Yep.
And the ironic thing is, when I was possibly sick with that coronavirus at the end of January, I have not been sick ever since, and that's the end of January.
Yep. Oh, great. All right. Well, thank you, Joel, Captain, aka Captain Rock. This is a good overview, because I think a lot of people probably want to get back to traveling, but kind of want to know, the procedures and how things are going. So I think this was a really good overview. So thanks for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.